Alright, so today we're looking at this MicroHeli carbon fiber frame. It is specifically designed for the Emax Tinyhawk Freestyle, but it's drilled out for a bunch of different flight controllers and motors, so I think it's more of a universal frame. Now, we're not going to be working on this frame because this frame I'm going to be giving away to one of you guys. I actually got contacted by MicroHeli, which I thought was pretty cool. They wanted to send me one of these to review. Now, I didn't want to do that because I don't want to do sponsored reviews, so what I did was I actually purchased one of my own on my own, and then I had them send me this one to give away. I think that's a pretty good compromise. I don't feel too bad about doing that. So this one is going to be given away, and I'll talk to you a little bit later about how we're going to do that. So this is my Tinyhawk Freestyle. Right now I have it set up with a RunCam 2. So right now I have it set up with a RunCam Nano 2 with my own 3D printed mount. It has the Tiny Sleds sled adapter with a TBS Unify Pro Nano VTX and a XM Plus receiver in it. I've got an XT30 hanging off the back, and I think other than that it's stock, so the form factor should fit nicely in the frame. So let me go ahead and get this other frame out of the package and we'll take a look at it. And it's supposed to be an absolute plug-and-play setup, so hopefully this will go pretty smoothly. Alright, let's take a look at what we have here. So we've got the frame here, and it's pretty stiff. Seems to be fairly well made. I've got a couple little bit of rough edges here, nothing too bad though. It is not chamfered, but a lot of frames aren't. They to save costs, and that's not that big of a deal. Now you can see it is drilled for 20 by 20 and 16 by 16 stacks, as well as a 1-inch whoop stack, and it also has the holes for the proprietary Freestyle stack. So that makes it pretty universal. Now you can see here it's also drilled for motors that have the 9 by 9 millimeter motor mounts, and I'm pretty sure that the 3-hole is like a 6.6 millimeter or something like that, but the standard 3-hole mount. So you could put a lot of different setups in this frame. It's definitely not just for the Tinyhawk Freestyle. So we've got the base plate, and then we have a couple of side plates. I'm not exactly sure how those go yet. Those are a little bit thinner. I think this base plate's 2.5 millimeters, 3 millimeters maybe, and then these are going to be 1 millimeter. And then we've got some TPU motor pads. I'm not going to run these, I never do. We've got a 3D printed top plate, and then some other braces and a back plate and things like that. Camera holder, and then a battery holder. I won't be using this battery holder because I've already got mine set up for an XT30 and I run a 2S 450 on it. And then we also have what looks like a pretty nice set of instructions here, which is really nice because a lot of these things don't come with instructions. So what I'm going to do is first I want to weigh my Tinyhawk and get a measurement on that, and then we'll weigh it afterward once we switch everything over into the new frame and see how the new frame stacks up weight-wise. Now, I'm sitting at exactly 60 grams here for mine. That's going to be a decent amount heavier than what they are stock, but that doesn't matter because it's going to be a direct measurement between this and what it weighs when we switch it over to the other frame. Okay, so first step is I'm going to go ahead and strip everything off of this frame, and then we'll go ahead and start putting it into the other frame. Alright, so disassembly is pretty straightforward. All you do is you just basically flip over your original frame, take all the screws out of the bottom that are relevant, and then everything just kind of lifts off all as one unit. Now you're going to want to be careful when you're disassembling this because the wires for the motors are solid, they're not stranded, so they're kind of fragile. You don't want to bend them too much because you'll end up breaking something. As far as these little pieces of tape, those are the hardest parts for me. I just took a really sharp razor blade and cut them underneath and then peeled them up, and I'll just clean them up off the wires here in a minute. Alright, step one was to install this front TPU support and this rear TPU support. They install with self-tappers through the bottom. I'm a little bit concerned about longevity on these, in crashes and whatnot, but once they're screwed in, honestly, they feel pretty solid, so it probably won't be a problem. Alright, well that's the flight controller stack and motors mounted up. They mounted up just fine. No problems with the holes or anything like that. So the next step is going to be to install these side plates, like so. They just go on with 3 screws on each side. And then I'm going to put my camera in, and then I'll put the top plate on, and I'll bring you back and we'll take a look at what it looks like. Okay, side plates are on. They actually went in pretty good, and this is actually coming together to be a pretty stiff little setup. I think it's going to be fairly strong. Now they give you a little adapter here. I'm going to be using this in my run cam. I'm sorry, I'm going to be using my run cam in this, so I'll just be putting the run cam in there. If you're going to be using the stock camera, it has a little notch in the top and bottom, and you just slip the camera in those notches. And these TPU prints are actually really nice. They're good and strong and well done. I've seen some TPU prints that were left a little bit to be desired. These are done well. So that's it. You just slide it in there, and then you'll mount it in front here. So I'm going to get the camera mounted, get the top plate mounted, and I've got one more brace to put in, and then we'll see what it looks like. Alright, so here she is all put together. It went together fairly easily. There are, quite a few little screws that you have to put in, which aren't too bad. A couple of tips. One, when you're putting these side panels on, go ahead and start these 3 screws on the bottom on either side into the carbon before you set it in place. It'll make it a lot easier to get things aligned. Second, make sure you plug in your camera before you put this side plate on, because it's very tricky. There's plenty of room for it once it's plugged in, but you can't really get the plug in there when the side plate is on. So just go ahead and make sure you get that plugged in first. Other than that, it went pretty well. Now they give you a little mount here for the 2 individual batteries. I don't run it like that. I run it with a strap, which is really nice, is that they give you this really nice long strap slot here that allows you to put pretty much whatever strap you want in and gives you plenty of room there. And then I've got my my power connector coming through out the back here, and it just sits right through there. My antenna comes up, my VTX antenna comes up through the front, and my RX antennas come out here through the bottom. Yours may be different than this because you may have the stock set up on that, but I assume it'll be similarly as easy. The camera is nicely protected from the front. I do wonder if I'm going to see some of this bumper in the camera frame, but we'll take a look at that in the flight. Alright, I'm going to throw a battery in this, and we'll get it up in the air and do a little flight demo with it, see how it feels. Alright, first off, in order to win this frame, all I need you to do is subscribe to the channel, and then put a comment down in the comments letting me know why you want this frame, and that'll get you entered in to win this cool green MicroHeli frame for the Tinyhawk Freestyle and others. So it's a really windy day out, as you'll probably be able to tell. Now, when I fly the Tinyhawk Freestyle normally in wind, I get a lot of pushback, a lot of buffeting and things like that, and I think that has to do with the way the frame's designed. It has the multiple strut frame instead of just the single strut like the MicroHeli frame does. Now, in this wind, you'll probably be able to tell that I'm not really getting pushed around that much, and it is a lot of wind for this little quad. So I'm actually pretty happy with that. Now, it flies pretty much the same other than that. Now, after putting this together and using it for a little while, I found quite a few things I like about this frame, and some few things that I really don't. So the first thing I really like about it is, I think it's a really cool looking frame. It is fairly well built. Everything, once it's put together, is nice and rigid, feels like it's going to hold together well. Camera mount's really nice. It allows you to use the original camera. It allows you to use the nano camera, and you could also use a micro camera in here if you wanted to, which I think is kind of neat. It had a few grams of weight, but it's a kind of a unique thing to be able to do that in such a small quad like this. Now, downsides, the biggest thing I found, the biggest issue I found, is if you look at the USB port here, it is actually being covered by this side plate. Now, I don't get into my beta flight that often once I've got a quad set up initially. Any PID changes or anything I do, I can do through smart audio, so it's not a huge deal for me. And if you did need to get into it, all you'd have to do is just remove these screws in the side panel and just slide it to the side. So it's not like you have to completely disassemble the entire quad or anything like that. But it is a little bit of an issue. The only other thing I found is this top plate is made out of hard 3D printed plastic, and I'm guessing it's PLA. The screws that go into it, they bite in okay, but I think possibly in a hard crash, if you are using that mount that mounts to this, which I don't suggest you do, I suggest you use a battery strap, this might get ripped out. It's possible. The screws that go into the TPU are actually in there really, really well. I'm not worried about those at all. So overall, I really think that this little MicroHeli frame is a cool alternative to the original frame. If you're completely happy with your quad right now and there's nothing wrong with your original frame and you're not really into tinkering, should you buy this? I'm not sure, but if you like tinkering and you like the idea of maybe having a little bit less of a profile against wind like this one does as opposed to the stock frame, or you want to run a larger camera or have maybe a little bit more room to work with, then this frame would be really cool. Now also, don't forget that this frame is drilled for 16 millimeter, 20 millimeter, and 1x1 whoop boards. Now, I think you could probably get a 16x16 stack in there. I don't think you'd really be able to do much with a 20x20 stack. The whoop board would be fine. You would want to use a toothpick style board because I don't believe that, unless you flipped it upside down, I don't believe that the whoop style boards, the motor connectors would fit properly. So there's definitely some cool options in here, and I really do like this frame. So anyway, I really appreciate you guys watching, and I appreciate you guys subscribing and commenting so you can win this frame here for yourself. And we'll have plenty more stuff coming up soon. We'll see you then. Thanks. Bye.